This is a class, you know? Treat it like a welcome to class. I've taken notes on every podcast that we've done. I've applied the things from every podcast too.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
That's what we're good students.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here. Welcome to Business Secrets from Our Millionaire Dad. We have Randall Davidson, myself, and we've got my daughter Sierra and Brianna.
Hello.
Excited that we're all here and we're starting again.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
I like fresh starts. I'm a good fan of fresh starts, and mornings are my favorite. So I'm excited right now.
We are here. This is our
that's
first
actually good to
morning
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. We wanted to kind of pick up where we left off, talk about putting it on paper, getting the idea that you have, and then taking it to paper and starting to understand what we're talking about formed and in place so that we have a true picture of what's going to happen in the end. So I'll kind of cover a little bit about what my next step. I've got the idea, I've got the vision, I've got the dream. We've now got to define, we've defined a little bit about who we're trying to reach. And I'm going to draw back from my experience with my show, Pacific Swing Hawaii, in Hawaii. And for those who don't know, what we ended up doing is we put together and we executive produced a 1940s USO big band show in Waikiki. And we did it at the Royal Hawaiian. It was where original USO shows were started. And it was a 40s experience. So you walked in with the same experience that you would as if you stepped into that exact hotel in the 40s. That was the dream. That was the vision.
Is that just something that you are interested in? Like, what made you
Right.
get to that? Because that is very specific, and it's not, especially when, I mean, it's Hawaii.
Right.
So I think a lot of people automatically think the Hawaiian culture, luau. So yeah, tell us how that came about.
So first off, I'm a big 40s fan. You guys all know I love big band music. I love the Frank Sinatra. I love all that type of music that was really, favorites from the past.
And our intro and outro are from Pacific Swing.
That's right. That is
Right.
that's actually music that we own, that we put together. But yeah, I was a big fan of 40s music, and we wanted to go to Hawaii badly. We wanted to move there, want to get out of cold weather, and we were trying to figure out a way to do that. And it seemed like a really good and easy fit because of the fact that it was where it was first done. It was in the World War II. Pearl Harbor was right there. People always go there. They want to go to Pearl Harbor. They celebrate that time frame in that era. And so it was, to me, it was a wonderful and natural fit. And it was a complete dream from something I had absolutely no experience in, but I didn't know how to start a business. And it all boils down to the same principles all the way along. So once we determined exactly what we thought it was going to be and what that experience was going to look like, we then had to then do the due diligence and figure out the details. We had to figure out where we're going to do it. We had to contact hotels and get some pricing so that we could put together our swag numbers. We talked about swag a little bit. That's and the true term we Googled is scientific wild ass numbers.
It's so refreshing to hear Dad say a swear word so casually.
It's a little uncomfortable for me to say, but that's what it is.
Sounds
So,
natural. I like it. I would love to pick your brain a little bit about how you were able to map it out, especially since it came from just a thought.
So, number one, we had to put together the details as to who we're trying to reach, which we've done. But we then had to get in deeper and figure out what are the odds that it's going to work. It's like a donut shop. You know, you can put a donut shop on the corner where lots of people are at, or you put it in, hidden behind somewhere else, and it's a completely different strategy on how you're going to work it. Same thing here. We wanted to find the place that would attract as many of the people we're trying to get to as we can. So we went, first thing I did is I started doing homework on Hawaii, on Honolulu, who shows up, who's there. We found out that there's about 4 million visitors that go to that place. How often are they there? What's the age group of people that vacation there? And what are they doing when they're there? And we found out that the luau is the number one thing that people that have never been have to do. So they have to do that at least once. And then there's a lot of people that do reoccurring ones. They'll come back and they'll celebrate that. So we had to break down all those details as to who's there, when they come, how long they stay, so that we could then start to determine a little bit about who our target audience is going to be and how we're going to get them.
Okay, cool. So you do start with research.
Homework.
Yeah, homework. And then trying to find that specific person that's buying the ticket. Who is that?
And can they afford it? So we had to figure out the overall income base, where they stay, and what their annual income is. And it's not everybody's, of course, but we're putting together this pool so that we can understand who our target is.
And with the research too, are you starting on Google and seeing where that leads you? Because that's a lot of info to get that is so important for your show that I feel like you got to figure out how to find that.
So yeah, I sat down with your mother, Andrea, and started trying to map out what that customer looks like, who that person is. And in our heads, we're like, okay, our grandparents, our parents are the ones that usually go. So that was kind of the beginning. We did some Google homework. We also talked to the tourism board. I actually went to the tourism board offices in Honolulu, sat down with them, and stepped through what's the group of people that come and where do they usually stay and where do they put their efforts and how do they plan their trip. Do they plan it ahead of time or do they plan it when they show up? What does that look like? The great thing is that all that information was already available. Most of it, as you guys do homework, you'll find is already available. It's already on the internet. You just got to basically mine it and find the information that you want.
Now we have a personal assistant, AI.
And now you got AI.
We got
AI can help you
an
answer the
even
question.
easier way.
Yeah. So once we kind of mapped out what that person looked like, we found out that basically it was 70% of the people that go to Hawaii had already booked their activities before they arrived. The other 30% of those people didn't book until they arrived. So that meant that we had to break out our marketing into two folds. People before they arrive, who do we need to contact? And secondly, who on the island are they booking through? Because they still are booking through someone and they're trying to figure out ways. So all that research had to be figured out ahead of time. Once we figured that out, we had to then start putting together projections with our swag numbers. Okay, the hotel's going to cost X amount per day because I had done the homework. I'd found out what they needed. I basically determined that I wanted to replicate what a restaurant type experience would be like in the 40s, what the ballroom would be like, what the stage would look like. So all that was all in my mind, and I had to then try and figure out how to put that together and how to get the most amount of people I can in a comfort level and still have the same experience I was trying to reach.
I was going to say, yeah, because you're just at that point, you're creating an experience.
Creation, correct. Creating it from nothing.
Can we talk a little bit about narrowing down to your dream customer? Something that I actually have done in the past. For me, I actually really liked using Pinterest as a tool to create a person. I named her, I gave her an age, I knew what her hobbies were.
I love that.
And it really helped me visualize and understand and figure out who I am talking to with my products.
Love that. And I think if you name that person, then it becomes real to you. So I think it's a great scenario, a great idea. So you figure out who that person is and then lock that down. Once you have that person in place and you start to form two plans, how are you going to talk to that person? How are you going to get them to change their behavior? And then the second thing you have to figure out is how much it's going to cost for each person who is buying your product. In my case, buying a ticket, and how much that needs to cost in order to cover all the expenses and all the details to get them there, to have everything in place. and then break it right down to the cost of the seat and how many seats need to be filled every day to make money. And
Mhm.
this is a nostalgic experience that can actually have people come in and experience what it was like in the 40s in Hawaii. So my ideal customer turned out where I thought it was going to be the first customers that have never been. Turns out
Mhm.
that's not my first customer. My best customer is the one who's already been here or who comes here every year because
Yeah.
they're looking for something new to do. They've done the luau, so their best customer is the first ones that are coming to experience Hawaii for the culture. People that go back a second or third time are doing it for nostalgia purposes. They just enjoyed it last time. They want to do it again. So if we can give them a new experience with new ideas and new things to do, it's really easy to say, I'm in Hawaii. I want to do something, but I've done the luau. What now?
Right.
And we ended up in the height of our time, voted the number one family show on Hawaii Kiki. Remember that?
Wow. Yeah. And it was a family show. I worked there.
It was a family show. Yes, it was. So
So then you looked at your competitors to see kind of what their age group was.
yeah, great point.
And
Had to find out
uh-huh.
what's already out there. Had to
Yep.
find out what other competitions being done, what their programs are happening, and what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing, and who they're trying to reach.
And then you went to the tourist and you looked at like the bookings and what normally customers book or
The tourist division, they've got all
uh-huh.
the data that I need. And for me to put together how much money it was going to need for me to actually build this from scratch, I needed to know all those details. And then I needed to put together this cost breakdown. How much can I afford to pay the musicians? How much do I afford to pay the director? How much do I afford to pay
Mm-hmm.
lighting and sound? And we have to pay for food. We're doing an experience where they're going to eat dinner or they're going to have a drink. All those different things have to be laid out and mapped out so that we could get the exact detail of what we projected our swag numbers were going to look like because I knew that eventually I was going to have to pitch that to an investor. We had to have help to get money. We'll talk
Right.
about money soon.
So once you created your ideal customer, that's how you were able to find what location you actually wanted to look into.
Hmm.
And that's where you're like, okay, these are the hotels that they're booking. So now you can find the projections of what does the ballroom look like, those types of things.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you're exactly right. And we started at the Marriott. And the reason I went to the Marriott is because they were willing to give me the most concessions to get me to get there. So they were
Mm-hmm.
willing to help us with that. So I started out there knowing that my end goal was really the Royal Hawaiian because that's where the original USO shows began. And I found out that they actually had the exact ballroom that the USO shows began in. They had the exact stage, they had everything. So it made it so that we could really bring somebody back in time, which was my dream. And all those things were so strong in my mind, in my heart, that I knew where I wanted to end up being. But I wasn't going to get there right out of the gate. I had to get there. But back to today's episode, talking mainly about getting on paper. Number one, identify your client. You got to identify how you're going to reach that client, get it on paper. Then you can start putting together ideas on how to talk to that customer. Nowadays, there's a lot more social media. There's a lot of other ways that you can find that customer. There's lots of ways. The other side of it is you got to figure out how much it's going to cost per ticket so that you know how many tickets have to be sold per night to cover the costs, in my case, in the show, and have that broken right down, and then figure out how many shows you're going to have to perform to meet the demand, but also to meet our plan.
So the next step that you did from creating your client, you then started to map out the marketing on top of mapping out the end in mind.
Correct. We had to map out the marketing, and it all comes down to having the money nailed down so that you know beforehand. You don't go into a dark tunnel and just start pouring money into it thinking it's going to flow. You've got to know before you start how much it's going to cost, not just for the production. In this case, we're producing a show, but in most cases, you're producing an item. And then you also have to know how to reach the customer. So that's where the marketing comes in. Once you get that infrastructure figured out, then you can start to form what the organization has to look like. because there's got to be somebody who's the final decision maker. You've got to make sure you got somebody who is going to be there in charge of making sure that the marketing is taken care of. You got to make sure that the accounting is taken care of, that the legal is taken care of. We had to find the songs that we were going to play, getting in touch with the director and then getting their vision, having them understand what my vision was going to look like. All those things had to happen after we got the money in place, because without the money, I could have all the meetings in the world and get nowhere. That's putting the cart before the horse. But you can't get money until you know what you need.
Right.
You got to know what you need. Then once you do, then you got to start breaking down all those details. The guy who's going to lend you the money, whether that be a bank, an investor, angel investors, venture capitalist firm, they want to know that you've mapped every little detail out. Most of the time when you get into VCs, venture capitals, they want to see that it's performing before they even touch it. In fact, if you see Shark Tank, what's one of the first questions they ask you? What's your sales right now? What have you already done? They're not buying ideas. They're buying products that work. They're buying businesses that are working. People think ideas are worth money. The idea is not worth the money. Venture capital are groups of people who buy into businesses to take them from the beginning steps to the next step. And sometimes it's not just the next step. They're the ones that are going to take them to step number 3 or step number 4. Angel investors, those are the ones that are going to invest at the beginning, but they're not going to invest in just an idea. If I just say, I've got an idea for a new pocket knife or whatever that no one's heard of before, that means absolutely nothing.
So what I'm understanding is marketing and the end in mind go so hand in hand, because marketing is somewhat a solution to how you're going to be able to keep the ticket sales, to find the people that you want to have.
You got to know how to get hold of them. You need to speak to them. If you can't talk to the person you're trying to talk to, you're wasting your time.
Gotcha. Cool. So I feel like from this, we've got our vision. We've got our great idea that's sparked up. Now, today, we've talked about putting it on paper, getting it to that next step. Something that I noticed was really helpful, especially because I learned this when I was younger, was doing the spider web effect, where you have your vision right in the middle and then drawing lines to different bubbles, where you have one bubble that would be the marketing strategy, one bubble where it's talking about the pros as to why you're wanting to do this vision, a bubble where you can talk about the projections that you're wanting to look at, or the locations that you've thought of, or the research that you've done. It's just helpful to have everything all in one page that's a little bit easier for you to see, so you can really understand the goal as to what you have for your vision.
And I think for me, I would say make sure that you have them prioritized. So it's not just a splat on the wall. You got what you're trying to accomplish, and you got these little things, but you're prioritizing what's next. Step number 2, step number 3, step number 4, so that you can be clear. Because the clearer you are in your head, the clearer you are to express that vision to others, and the clearer that vision is to expressing others, will be clearer for them to buy in to what you're trying to accomplish, and then determine if they're willing to participate and be a part of what you're building.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, I think we've got our homework for this week. Yeah. Do we?
It's been fun.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to want to thank our producer, Andrea Davidson, your mother, my wife. Thank Sierra. Thank Reed for being here. We're all here as a team, and we're excited to share with people that care how these little secrets in business are built.
Also, Sierra and I do the editing as well, so just know. Do we want to claim that? We're amateurs right now, but we're learning. We've got a vision, and we're working towards that.
So great.
Exactly.
Celebrate the wins.
Yes.
Let it be fun. Don't stress out. Let this time be fun.
Keep it fun. I like that. Okay. Awesome. Have a good weekend. Woo.